This week, in AI, we are telling a control story. Who controls the tools? Who controls the chips? Who controls the terms of use? And who gets to decide where AI shows up in work, government, and everyday life? We got a major OpenAI product push, a Pentagon clash with Anthropic, new signs that chips are now geopolitical leverage, and one of the clearest examples yet that AI can speed up cybersecurity in the real world. Welcome back to the Business and AI podcast. This is your weekly AI Roundup for March 7, 2026. Today, we're breaking the week into 4 big themes: AI at work, policy and power, chips and infrastructure, and then applied research and real-world impact. And throughout the episode, I'll keep pulling out 2 things for every story: what it means for business and what it could mean for our society. The first big story this week is not just that OpenAI launched a new model. It is that OpenAI is pushing AI directly into the daily work stack. On March 5th, OpenAI launched GPT-5.4, calling it its most capable and efficient frontier model for professional work. It supports native computer use and up to 1 million tokens of context, which matters because that means longer, more complex workflows can be handled in a more agent-like way. The same week, OpenAI also launched ChatGPT for Excel in beta, plus financial data integrations with providers including FactSet, Factiva, LSEG, Dalupa, and S&P Global. OpenAI says the product is meant to help users build and update models, run scenarios, and work directly inside workbooks. On its internal investment banking benchmark, it says performance improved from 43.7% with GPT-5 to 87.3% with GPT-5.4. Thinking. For business, this is important because AI is moving from chat assistant to embedded analyst. Finance teams, strategy teams, and operations teams are being shown a future where AI is not just answering questions, it is touching the spreadsheet itself. That could mean faster modeling, faster reporting, and a lot more pressure on white-collar workflows that used to be protected by complexity. For society, this raises the familiar but growing question of trust. When AI moves inside high-stakes tools like Excel and financial research environments, the cost of quiet mistakes goes up. The productivity upside is obvious, but so is the need for oversight, auditability, and human review. Here's the second big story. Google's most important AI move this week may have been about cost, not spectacle. Google introduced Gemini 3.1 Flash-Lite on March 3rd, calling it its fastest and most cost-efficient Gemini 3 series model. It is rolling out in preview through Google AI Studio and Vertex AI, priced at 0.25 per million input tokens and 1.50 per million output tokens. Google also says it improves on 2.5 flash in speed, with faster time to first token and higher output speed. For business, this matters because the AI market is becoming a margin market. A cheaper, faster model makes it easier to build high-volume tools in customer support, moderation, classification, translation, and lightweight agents. That is good news for startups trying to ship products without burning cash on inference. For society, lower-cost AI means broader access, but it also means more AI everywhere, in more customer interactions, more moderation systems, and more automated decisions. Cheaper models expand opportunity, but they also expand the surface area of harm if governance does not keep up. A quick signal in the same lane. Google also expanded Canvas in AI mode to everyone in the US in English, adding support for creative writing and coding, and said it can now help people draft documents or build interactive tools right inside Search. At the same time, Notebook LM added cinematic video overviews using Gemini 3, Nano Banana Pro, and Veo 3 to create richer visual explainers for source materials. For businesses, this is another sign that search, productivity, and content creation are collapsing into one interface. That is a huge shift for marketing teams, researchers, educators, and solo founders. For society, it means more people will increasingly consume synthesized, generated explanations instead of raw sources. That can improve accessibility, but it also makes source literacy even more important. Now we move into the power section, and this may be the sharpest policy story of the week. On March 5th, the Pentagon formally designated Anthropic a supply chain risk, effective immediately, barring government contractors from using Anthropic's technology in Pentagon work. Reuters reported that companies can still use Claude in projects unrelated to the Pentagon, but the move is still extraordinary because it treats a U.S. AI company in a way usually associated with adversarial supply chain risk. The underlying conflict is about safeguards. Reuters reported Anthropic has refused to allow Claude to power autonomous weapons and mass U.S. surveillance, while the Pentagon has pushed back on those limits.
Anthropic says it will challenge the designation in court. For business, this is a major signal that enterprise AI is no longer just about performance. It is also about acceptable use terms, client demands, and political risk. If governments become major AI customers, vendors may be forced to choose between principle-based restrictions and access to huge contracts. For society, this is one of the clearest examples yet of a basic question we are going to keep seeing. Should AI companies be allowed to say no to certain state uses of their systems, especially in surveillance and warfare? And the Anthropic fight did not stop there. Reuters reported on March 7th that the Trump administration had drawn up strict rules for civilian AI contracts that would require companies to allow any lawful use of their models. For AI companies, that is a huge shift. It suggests future government business may come with fewer carve-outs for vendor ethics policies. In plain English, if you want the contract, you may have to give up more control over how your model gets used. For society, this is bigger than one company. It suggests that the next AI governance battlefield may not be regulation first, it may be procurement. The customer with the largest budget often sets the practical rules. A related trust story came out of New York. Reuters reported that a proposed state law would bar AI chatbots from impersonating lawyers and other licensed professionals and would allow users who were deceived to sue for damages. The bill would apply not just to law, but also to fields like medicine and mental health. For companies building AI assistants, this points to a likely next phase of regulation, not just disclosure, but liability. For the public, it reflects a very real fear that people may treat fluent AI as qualified authority, especially in vulnerable moments. The next section is all about infrastructure, because AI does not scale on model quality alone. It scales on physics. On March 2nd, Nvidia said it would invest $2 billion each in Lumentum and Coherent. Reuters reported the goal is to strengthen the optical and photonic technologies that help data center chips move information faster, using light rather than electrical signals. For business, this matters because the AI race is broadening beyond GPUs. Optics, networking, packaging, and manufacturing capacity are becoming strategic choke points. That means future winners may include less glamorous companies sitting deeper in the supply chain. For society, the story is that AI's footprint is physical. These are not abstract models floating in the cloud. They depend on factories, materials, energy, and industrial capacity, which means communities will increasingly feel AI through land use, infrastructure, and resource demand. If Nvidia's story is about expanding the hardware stack, Broadcom's story is about changing who builds the chips. Reuters reported on March 5th that Broadcom forecast more than $100 billion in AI chip sales next year, while also saying AI revenue in the latest quarter more than doubled to $8.4 billion. The company is benefiting from demand for custom AI accelerators and networking gear, especially as major tech firms search for alternatives to Nvidia's expensive GPUs. For business leaders, the signal is simple. AI infrastructure is diversifying. If application-specific integrated circuits continue to gain traction, the market could shift from one dominant general-purpose compute supplier toward a more customized stack optimized for each hyperscaler's needs. For society, custom chips could make AI cheaper and faster to deploy at scale, but they could also deepen concentration because only the biggest firms can afford to design infrastructure this specialized. Now the geopolitical layer, Reuters reported that U.S. officials are debating new export rules for AI chips that could require foreign countries to invest in U.S. AI data centers or provide security guarantees for large chip shipments. The proposal reportedly covers thresholds like 100,000 to 200,000 chips, could require inspections, and could even impose licensing on smaller installations in some cases. For companies, this means global AI expansion may depend less on pure market demand and more on state negotiation. That affects data center planning, regional growth strategy, and where companies place infrastructure bets. For society, it means compute is increasingly being treated like strategic power. Access to chips is becoming part of diplomacy, security policy, and industrial policy all at once.
And on the other side of that geopolitical story, China made one of the week's biggest strategic statements. Reuters reported that China's new 5-year blueprint mentioned AI more than 50 times and included a sweeping AI plus action plan. The plan pushes AI into manufacturing, logistics, healthcare, education, and labor shortage sectors, while also emphasizing humanoid robots, quantum computing, 6G, brain-machine interfaces, and large computing clusters supported by abundant electricity. For business, this says China is not treating AI as a product cycle. It is treating AI as a whole economy upgrade. That has implications for supply chains, manufacturing competition, open source strategy, and global industrial policy. For society, the message is that AI is increasingly being framed as the answer to aging workforces, productivity pressure, and national competitiveness. That may drive growth, but it also raises questions about labor displacement, surveillance capacity, and whose version of AI governance becomes influential globally. Now let's end on the part of the week that feels most like the future arriving early. Anthropic said on March 6 that Claude Opus 4.6 discovered 22 Firefox vulnerabilities in 2 weeks, and Mozilla assigned 14 of them as high severity. Anthropic said that was almost a fifth of all high-severity Firefox vulnerabilities remediated in 2025. For business, this is a powerful example of applied AI that creates immediate value. Security teams are overloaded, and software supply chains are huge. If frontier models can materially speed up vulnerability discovery, that changes the economics of defense. For society, though, this is double-edged. The same capability that helps defenders can make offensive capability more accessible too. Faster bug finding can make the digital world safer, but only if defensive deployment stays ahead of malicious use. One useful counterweight this week came from Europe. Reuters reported that an ECB blog argued AI-intensive firms in the Eurozone are, at least for now, more likely to hire rather than fire. Firms making significant use of AI were found to be more likely to add staff in the near term, although the authors also warned that the long-term picture could change as AI transforms production more deeply. For business leaders, that is a reminder not to oversimplify the labor story. AI may cut some roles, yes, but it can also create hiring demand around integration, oversight, operations, and new products. For society, this matters because fear-based narratives can miss the transition phase. The real question may not be whether AI changes jobs, but which jobs change first and who gets supported through that shift. So the quick extra signals this week were these. Google kept blending search, creation, and research into one AI workflow. Search Canvas in AI mode for all US users, and Notebook LM's new cinematic video overviews. New York signaled that AI impersonation could become a liability issue. A proposed New York law would bar AI chatbots from posing as lawyers or other licensed professionals and would let deceived users sue. Anthropic showed how AI can materially speed up cybersecurity work, and the ECB reminded us that AI's labor effects are not yet a simple collapse story. Reuters reported an ECB blog arguing that AI-intensive firms in the Eurozone are, for now, more likely to hire than fire. That gives you a useful counterweight to the usual AI destroys jobs narrative. So what is the real takeaway from this week? AI is still improving as a product, yes, but the bigger story is that AI is becoming infrastructure, procurement policy, industrial strategy, and institutional power. OpenAI pushed deeper into daily work. Google pushed harder on cost and workflow. The US signaled that chips and contract terms are strategic tools. China signaled that AI is now central to national development. and applied research showed that frontier models are already changing fields like cybersecurity. For businesses, that means the next question is not just which model is best, it is which ecosystem can you trust, afford, govern, and scale with. And for society, the question is even bigger. Who gets the benefits of this build-out, who bears the risks, and who gets to set the rules? That's your AI news for the week of March 1st through March 7th, 2026. Subscribe to the Business and AI podcast for next week's rundown and drop a comment with the one story you think will matter most for business or with the most societal impact.